please join me in welcoming Anu with Atlassian and Hugo to discuss cultivating a safe environment for AI experimentation.
Come on. I'm Hugo Van Anderson. I'm an independent AI and data scientist and consultant. I'm so excited to be here today with Anu Bharadwaj, president of Atlassian. What is up, Anu?
Hi, Hugo. It's really great to be here. Came in from Seattle to the very lovely and foggy San Francisco this morning.
Fantastic. Well, I flew in a while ago from Australia, which of course, big Atlassian connection,
yeah, Sydney's my favorite city.
We're here to talk about agents. Perhaps that's a surprise for everyone. But we've been talking about agents for a couple of days now, and everyone has their own definition of agents, and it means different things to different teams. So I'm wondering, when you use the term at Atlassian, what are you talking about?
So Atlassian is a company that's very centered on teamwork. So we think about agents in the context of teamwork, but we think about agents as having certain sets of attributes. They have clear outcomes. They have a personality and character. Like you said, we're an Australian company, so a lot of our agents that our teams build internally have Australian accents, have inside jokes. And
I hope they don't cuss like Australians do.
They do, actually.
Okay.
But it's customizable.
Yeah.
And so agents have clear outcomes. They have personality and character. They have memory and context, which I think is what makes them really usable. And they have a spectrum in terms of degree of autonomy. I think we largely hear a lot of talk about, well, agents can do everything by themselves, right? Which is probably not true in most situations, but it's getting increasingly true for specialized cases, in specific jobs to be done, et cetera. But we think of agents as having a spectrum of autonomy. So you can really figure out the right agent definition for the job. And lastly, and very importantly for our context, which is a B2B context, when companies use agents inside their workflows, it's very important that it respects permissions, it understands role-based access, and that it's able to provide these customized answers based on what the agent, who's invoking the agent, and what that particular user has access to.
That makes a lot of sense. And something I've been really excited about the work you've been doing is you've allowed your company and organization as a whole to do serious experimentation with AI and AI adoption. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us a bit why experimentation needs to be a first-class citizen here.
Yeah, definitely. So you hear a lot about AI top-down mandates, right? And top-down mandates are great in terms of making a big splash, but really, what happens next? Cool, so the CEO issued a mandate, but what happens to the thousands of employees who then listen to said mandate, and what should they do? And especially with AI agents, the unlock of value is in constant iteration, because once you can adapt the agent to your context, for example, one of our most frequently used agents is called Nora, which is built on top of Atlassian Rovo, which is an onboarding agent. And we've deployed that for the last year or so inside Atlassian, and as we onboard different kinds of employees, we've figured out there are different sets of workflows the agent can do. It's not just about here's how to find the right applications to use, here's where the restroom is in the Sydney office, and not just the tactical ones, but also figuring out who are the right people that you want to talk to. In the first couple of weeks of immersion inside the company, who's the set of people that would be the most useful for you to steep into the Atlassian context? And agents require that constant iteration and adaptation, so it's very important that you get it out and you experiment. So while top-down mandates can encourage people to start using it in their daily work, people have to use it in their context and iterate over it to realize maximum value.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm wondering just how you think about cultivating a culture of experimentation. Because of course, we know with experimentation, you do necessarily get a lot of negative results. So you might not see short to medium term payoff. So yeah, how do you think about allowing everyone to feel safe and comfortable in an experimental world?
It's a great question, and it's one that we don't talk about often, right? Because psychological safety is important, because the first reaction that a lot of people have to AI is very much one of fear and reticence. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for my job? So as leaders, I think it's important for us to create these psychologically safe environments. And at Atlassian, we've always been very open. In fact, open company, no bullshit is one of our values. We like cussing a lot. And so creating that openness and creating an environment where employees can try out different things. And if it fails, it's okay. It's just fine. You just learned something about how to use AI in your context. It's helpful to be very explicit and open about it. And at Atlassian, we have that culture. So that's step one. And beyond of that, really, because we are a company that has 300,000 customers, and many of you in the audience have several enterprise customers that value privacy, security, all of these things really deeply. You have to create a balance between how do you allow people to experiment while making sure there are guardrails of safety and auditability, and are you logging everything that people are doing and trying out with different tools, et cetera. So our IT sec team does a fabulous job of creating that safety, creating those guardrails where employees are free to experiment. And through that iteration, we are able to progress what we build for customers as well. One of our really commonly used agents is called Robo Dev Agent, which basically does code reviews. It can take a Jira ticket, you hit a button, and it goes from spec to code directly. Now that's marvelous, but it started as a demo 18 months ago, and we basically put it out in beta. We continually iterated on it based on the customer data that we ourselves have, 6,000 engineers producing code reviews and PRs every day. But also, as we worked with customers, we experimented with what works, what doesn't work to create the right context for how does a PR get resolved? Which kinds of code review comments are the ones that are most often addressed? And how can we rank based on what we have learned based on that set of data? So that constant experimentation and iteration has made the agent so much more useful that actually, as of this morning, we're at the top of the SWE-bench leaderboard. And that's fabulous. If you think about the amount of work that goes into creating the kind of technological uplift that puts us on top of the leaderboard, it takes a lot of experimentation and iteration.
Awesome. So we've talked about that one and the onboarding one, but you've built thousands of agents within Atlassian. So I'm wondering if you could just tell us a bit about the breadth of all these systems.
Yeah, so Atlassian has a platform on top of which you can build agents. We call it the Rovo Agent Building Platform. But fundamentally, like I said, our thesis as a company is that it's all about teamwork. So when we think about agents, we think about how do humans and agents work together? What does teamwork across a team composed of a bunch of people and a bunch of agents, how does that evolve over time, and what can we do to support that? As a result, all of our teams really use robo agents and build their own robo agents. So for example, the legal team has an agent that can review contracts, that can look at terms, look at clauses, and is able to create a lot of summarization, a lot of contract summaries, et cetera, and save lawyers time. But the way to build that agent is very much a no-code way. So we make it super approachable that our GC team, our legal team can go create their own agents. We have marketing teams that have created marketing agents for content creation, for campaign creation. And of course, we have our engineering teams, like I talked about, RoboDev and RoboPRD creation. So there's a RoboPM agent that can create specs and requirements straight out of intent. And all of this coming together, how do these virtual agents who are virtual PMs, virtual developers, virtual marketers, how do they work together? How do you orchestrate that? That has been really the magical unlock, because our theory is that once that kind of teamwork becomes more commonplace, the entire operating system of the company changes. This is what we call the system of work for Atlassian.
Absolutely. And it sounds to me like you really think of these agents as team members, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So this is actually, as we talked about, I just taught a workshop on building agents and LLM workflows. And we talked about kind of the present and future of multiplayer and LLMs, ones which which you and I can chat with together, and it knows
Yes.
each of us. And that's something we don't see a lot of yet, but what I'm hearing is that that's something you're thinking about.
Exactly, you nailed it. So today, a lot of common agent usage we hear is around automated workflows, right? And to a certain degree, some non-deterministic usage within those workflows. But the magic really happens when multiple people are able to work together with multiple agents. And today, a lot of it is single player, like you note, because I think interaction patterns are still evolving. Chat is not going to be the default interaction pattern of how we interact with agents. We have ambient agents, we have agents through which you can assign tickets to a particular agent. So I think there is going to be multiple interaction patterns that drive multiplayer collaboration. Because fundamentally, what is teamwork all about? It is multiplayer collaboration. So we think about, in the agentic future, what does multiplayer collaboration look like? Multiple agents and multiple humans working together.
Have you thought about, I haven't thought about this a lot actually, but I suppose I'd call them, well, proactive as opposed to reactive agents, because I go to ChatGPT or whatever in order to build things or chat. But if I had something that came to me every Monday morning, it was like, hey, what's on your plate or something like that, being more proactive.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to think about how do you insert agents into your workflow today such that it automatically makes it more meaningful and more useful without you having to explicitly invoke it. In fact, one of our customers has built this daily summary agent, which is fabulous. When I looked at it, it's basically it looks across different data sources and it says, here are the sets of things that came from Slack, here are the sets of things that came from email, and I know what you worked on yesterday and last week, and I know your priorities. So it's able to build all that intelligent context into one single summary, and in the morning it's able to say, in your context, in Hugo's context, these are the things that you want to look at, so it avoids a bunch of other distractions. And doing that proactively is really magical, so that I don't have to go explicitly call on somebody or call on an agent in the morning to look at this information.
Absolutely. So we've talked a bunch about things happening internally. You just mentioned a client or customer. I'm wondering what you can tell us about how you afford all of your customers the opportunity to build agents on your platform as well and what they're building.
Yeah, so we have something called Rovo Studio, which allows you to build agents in multiple different ways. Because our thesis is that teamwork, agentic teamwork, is going to be the dominant way that people and agents work together in the future. What we've done is we've made Rovo Studio available and accessible to people of all skill sets. So you can write a no-code agent, you can write a pro-code agent. So for example, one of our customers uses Customer 360 we use Customer 360 internally, and one of our customers has built this agent using Forge, which is our developer platform, where it can summarize a set of customer information. So if I'm going in to meet a customer, it's able to say, okay, here's all the information about the customer, here's the meetings you've had, here's the set of issues or tickets they've raised. So it's able to basically give you a digest of what that customer's context is. So you're able to, in the context, right in the moment, you know what's the conversation to have with customers. Atlassian has about 300,000 customers, so we are a bit of an enterprise as well as SMB and mid-market serving company. So we see customers across construction industry, for instance, Procore built a set of agents that help them reduce their roadmap creation time by 75%, which is amazing to see how they've compressed their software development lifecycle inefficiencies and made that delivery loop go way faster. We have customers like HarperCollins in the publishing industry who have reduced manual work by 4x, which is incredible to see because it's really an amalgamation of non-technical people and technical people writing their own agents using Rovo Studio. And how do you bring those agents together to make the business run that much more smoothly?
That's fascinating. And I am interested in, you mentioned, for example, a legal team who can build their own agent to work on summarization, among other things. I'm wondering, because we have a technical audience, and when I build these systems using code, there's a lot that goes into evaluating and iterating and figuring out what chunking strategies perhaps are better, or whether the OCR's wrong, or these types of things. So I'm wondering how you afford them to be able to iterate on the systems, the agents themselves, or if you need to bring in technical people to help.
That's a great question. Because we have a lot of technical teams that we serve who tend to want to customize it to a great degree more detail, like the examples you were giving. We have a developer platform. We call that Forge. And you can combine Forge and Rovo Studio and be able to do some really deep customization around what kind of context do you want to build, what knowledge sources are accessible, what's the kind of interaction pattern you want to drive, all of that. That I think is extremely specialized and extremely powerful as well, which is great for a lot of our software development kind of teams. But there's also the need to iterate and the need to customize for non-technical audiences. So what we've done in Rovo Studio is we've built a spectrum of experiences through which you can use natural language to go customize what's the context window you want to give, what's the kind of knowledge sources that you want to prioritize one over the other, and what kind of character do you want to give to your agent, for example, and what's the tonality you want to have. And all of that you can do through natural language.
Amazing.
I think that's going to be the big unlock, because fundamentally when we talk about agentic transformation, it cannot be restricted to the code gen scenarios that we're seeing today. It has to permeate the entire team, because developers spend coding 10% of their time doing coding. The remaining 90% is really working with the rest of the team, figuring out what customer issues are, fixing issues in production. So we are basically creating a platform through which you can build agents for every single one of those functions, so the entire loop gets faster.
Absolutely. And as someone who builds software, one of the things I love about AI-assisted coding is the ability to just focus more on systems thinking and software composition than debugging. But not that that still isn't an issue. But it is wonderful. I am also interested in when someone, for example, legal team or onboarding team, HR, like builds an agent. How long does it take for them generally to iterate to get something which they're really confident will do what they want it to do?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get started. So the way we've designed the Rovo agent building platform is that it takes just a few minutes to get started with your own agent. So we have actually thousands of agents internally inside Atlassian, and when we deploy it to customers, we see immediately several tens of agents get created. But in order to keep building more context into it, like I said, it requires more iterations. So we see often the kind of custom agents that get used the most are highly contextual. An example is a performance review agent. So for companies that do biannual or annual performance reviews, we see several Rovo agents getting deployed to say, this is the format in which my company assesses performance. Therefore, here's the template that you want to use to write down your performance review. And here's the kind of data that's interesting. Go look at all the work that I've done over the last 6 months in Jira, in Confluence, or Google Drive. We have about 50 plus data connectors, so you can search across different sources, which is one of the fundamental problems today in terms of how fragmented data is and how hard it is to find information even now. So you can continuously iterate on existing agents based on a particular temporal window, based on a particular use case. And the important thing is that that spectrum exists. It's easy to get started, but then what you put in is what you get out. So you can continually iterate based on your interest in the agent.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of minutes left. I've enjoyed this so much, and you're so what I'd call future music in terms of like so far ahead on the adoption curve. I'd love to know just one or two things you could tell to us of what we can do in order to like build better, stronger, more useful agents.
Yeah, so I think AI transformation is really truly a change in the way we work. It took me a while for me to internalize that, because it's not like the previous shifts of mobile or cloud where a set of technological or go-to-market changes happened. It's not that. We're really talking about how do you fundamentally change the way you work. And for me, I think that's energizing. Isn't that amazing that you can now hit reset and you can think about a completely different way to work? And the most important thing to do there is really to be open and to share your learning. So many of you leaders in the room, I think it's very important that you go back and share how you are using AI to change your daily work. So as an example, what I do is I share Loom videos of new tools that I've tried out, things that I liked, things that I did not like, things that I thought, oh, they can be useful if only it had the right context. So I think that constant mental iteration for employees to see and try every single day, I think it's highly important, because as we evolve those ways of working, I think there's a far future where maybe we will reach a world where everything is completely agentic, and there is today's world where we're actually looking at small workflows and saying, okay, let's try and automate some of those. But the bridge to get from here to there is going to be built through several steps forward and some steps backward. So it's very important that we take those steps, that we continually iterate every single day. I found that to be the most important thing. As a leader, I have to do that myself to make sure that our teams are also trying that out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Anu, for a wonderful conversation. I could have chatted with you for a lot longer.
Thank you, Hugo. This was great.
All right. Thank you, everyone.